Let's go!
Thank God it's Friday!
The guy! Drop it. All right, power panel for you guys. Jay Huger, Marjorie Bondi, John Idarola, Johnny Pie, of course, hosts the Damage Report. Make sure you're checking them out there. Maz, of course, on Rebel HQ. So, and MazJabani.com. You're gonna get to see his touring there. Make sure you're checking that out. Speaking of checking things out, all right, a lot more on the Epstein story. Trump is firing back at Murdoch. What's the situation there? He says they're going to release some grand jury testimony. Is that important? Is that interesting? We have important details about that. The Democrats have a new strategy for appealing to voters. That's in the second hour. Is it going to work, or is it going to be super duper awkward? Okay, even from the question, you can begin to tell which direction. And we had to give Israel another $500 million. We didn't have a choice. It was absolutely necessary because they are the most special ally in the world. And so, but what was interesting about that story is that there were 6 people who fought back. About half of them Republicans, half of them Democrats. Interesting, interesting. And the people not on that list, also interesting. Okay, so a lot to get to. Amazing day of news for you guys. Johnny Pie.
Yes, why don't we start off with who's getting sued? Last night, the Wall Street Journal reported that Donald Trump, years ago, apparently sent Jeffrey Epstein a sexually explicit birthday message. And ever since that, and in fact, kind of leading up to it, Donald Trump made clear that he is going to sue the Wall Street Journal as well as its owner, Rupert Murdoch, and that has since happened. The lawsuit has been filed, and I think to those who say Donald Trump doesn't have a sense of humor, and I've said that many times, he does though, because he filed the lawsuit in Eileen Cannon's district. Now you're probably wondering, is the Wall Street Journal headquartered there? No. Is there any connection to the case? No, but it would be nice for him if he got her, I'm sure. Now we're gonna give you all the details, including what was actually in the letter, but does this seem like just another Trump like temper tantrum, or do you think he actually believes this is fake news?
Okay, so guys, we got to discuss 2 things in this segment, right? One is this new precedent that Donald Trump has started for all politicians, which is if anyone criticizes you or does a story about you that you view to be damaging, you just sue them. And that way we have a free country with freedom of press and freedom of speech because the politicians sue everyone into submission that dares to criticize them. So that's half the story. The other half the story is, does this leak from the Wall Street Journal help or hurt? And I'm not sure that it helped the Epstein case at all. And you might be surprised by that opinion, but I'm gonna tell you why in a little bit, okay?
Yeah, I get where you're going with that, I think. But yeah, but we wanna start with the lawsuit because that's sort of the theme of today's show. Newspapers being sued, comedic critics of the president being fired. We've got a lot of that. But in case you missed the initial reporting of what was in that birthday letter, it bore Trump's name, and it contains several lines of typewritten text framed by the outline of a naked woman, which appears to be hand-drawn with a heavy marker. A pair of small arcs denotes the woman's breasts, and the future president's signature is a squiggly Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. And so the president's birthday cards share a lot in common with the sort of like whiteboard displays created by the crew of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. In any event, inside the outline of the woman was that note. And it's basically a third person like fictional conversation between Trump and Epstein, or at least I really hope it's fictional. But here it goes, voiceover. There must be more to life than having everything, the note began. Donald, yes there is, but I won't tell you what it is. This commercial would suck, by the way. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I also know what it is. I can't do his voice, I have no idea what he sounds like because unlike Donald Trump, I wasn't friends with him for at least 2 decades. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes we do, come to think of it. And then it goes on. Donald, enigmas never age, have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. So, ew. And also, so they did reach out to Trump for comment on this, the Wall Street Journal. He stated to them apparently, this is not me, this is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women. It's not my language, it's not my words. I'm gonna sue the Wall Street Journal just like I sued everyone else, which is how presidents should talk. And so anyway, after that, he then took to Truth Social, as he always does, and posted like a novelette about how mad he was, that he was gonna sue them, that it's fake news, every criticism of him is, and again insisted that he doesn't draw pictures, which to be very clear, he very much does. So this was actually tweeted out, a little compilation of the many sketches he has done. Now, they're thankfully not of breasts, but they are of buildings, and many of them do appear to be done in a heavy marker. And so, like, if you care about whether he's being honest or not, there's plenty of evidence that he likes to draw. Now, was that writing a bit complex for someone as simple-minded as him? Yes, but that said, it was in third person, which pretty much everything that he writes is, so sort of mixed evidence about that. But as we said, the lawsuit has been filed. He is suing apparently for libel, assault, and slander. So libel and slander, I thought those were different things. He's apparently not, doesn't understand any more than I do. And so he's suing Rupert Murdoch, the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, and the 2 reporters who wrote the article. Now, bear in mind, proving that this is libelous requires proving a few different things, including that there was malice, that they were knowingly publishing something false or defamatory, something to hurt him. That is gonna be very difficult to do, but that same high bar could be applied to almost any of the lawsuits that he's baselessly filed and then have been settled for millions of dollars, not because there's any merit to it, but because those companies don't want to be destroyed by an authoritarian regime that's utterly out of control. That's my legal theory anyway. Cenk, what do you make of it?
Yeah, so first of all, again on the lawsuits, now Gavin Newsom sued Fox News and got an apology last night from Jesse Waters and a retraction. Like, I like that Jesse Waters had to apologize and retract because he was lying, and I'm glad that Gavin Newsom called him out on it. But I hate this phenomenon. Every politician is now going to sue at the drop of a hat. And remember, the problem with the corporate media is that they're corporate. So if it hurts their bottom line, they don't really care what's true or not true. Let's put it this way, to be fair to them, the reporters care, the editors care to some degree, the publishers care a lot less, the owners almost don't care, okay? And so when the owner says, okay, now my multi-billion-dollar merger is at stake, as an example, right? Should I give Donald Trump a $16 million bribe and admit that, oh, we edited, like we do on every single episode? Okay, here's your bribe, right? So now Republicans at this point, largely speaking, the MAGA that's still supporting Trump, et cetera, right? Will say, God, Trump's fighting back, attaboy, stupid fake news, way to get him back, Donnie. Okay, so the next time there's a Democratic president, you guys don't mind, right? That he'll sue not just Wall Street Journal and mainstream media, he'll sue you guys. He'll be like, okay, Charlie Kirk, you're up, batter up. Tucker Carlson, et cetera. Patrick Bet-David, we're gonna sue the living crap out of you. You criticize the Democratic president. How dare you, fake news, that's it, we're suing you all out of existence. And what if it's someone really rich, right? What if it's Pritzker from Illinois? That's it, kiss all your shows goodbye, okay? Or good luck, you gotta all pay him off. And by the way, the president controls licenses. The president controls the ability to do mergers or not to do mergers. This is a terrible trend. This is a disgusting trend, okay? And it is definitely not freedom of the press when the politicians get to bully the press, take money from them, make them go through all this expense, et cetera. So that part's super clear and everyone should be against it. Okay, now onto the substance that John was talking about. Look, here's why, guys, that I'm a little worried about this story. So number one, it doesn't add much to what we know. And I don't say that in like the Chris Cuomo kind of way where he was kind of minimizing it, right?
We'll get to that,
yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. No, I mean it like, but I already knew he was terrific friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 15 years. I already knew that he said, and this is very much on the record, he said it in 2002, Jeffrey likes him younger. We all knew that they partied together and we saw all the girls around them, right? So like it barely adds anything, but what does it do? Number one, it distracts from where people were going with this, the intelligence agencies. Now we go, oh no, it's Donald Trump and Bill Clinton that were on the list. That's the alternate theory. It's just a couple of politicians, nothing to see here, right? It's definitely not the intelligence agencies. So let's focus on Donald Trump. Number two, it's actually very easy to refute because the Wall Street Journal didn't even produce the letter. They said, trust us, this is what's in the letter. Now, do I trust that is the letter? Yeah, it sounds right. It matches everything that Trump said. The only thing that's questionable, as John pointed out, is it doesn't sound like him. I have a theory on that. My theory doesn't have to be right, okay? But my sense of it is, Ghislaine Maxwell asked him to write it, right? By the way, the largest groomer in American history, for the largest child rapist in American history. So Trump's like, oh great, yeah, I'd love to do that. But you know Trump, he's lazy. My guess is Ghislaine wrote that. It has words that she would use, right? And says, Donnie, are you okay with this? And he's like, oh yeah, I like it, right? That's my guess, but that's unimportant, right? So, but overall, it matches the entire history that we have. But when Trump says fake news, they didn't even have the document. They don't even show the document. And I don't speak like that, et cetera. What it does is it gets all of MAGA to go, oh yeah, fake news, right. This is what mainstream media does to smear our beloved Trump. It gets him back in that groove. So I think it actually set the whole thing back, to be honest. Maybe not intentionally, I hope not intentionally, but right now I think there's less momentum to find the Epstein files than there was before the Wall Street Journal story.
I'll help to put that back on the tracks later in the show, don't worry.
All right, good. Maz, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that second point is a great point, Cenk, especially when you think about who is releasing it and what's in their interest, because Wall Street Journal, or I should say Rupert Murdoch, has had his back. He basically built Trump. So what's really happening here? Because we know Trump was trying to distract any way he could. Stop talking about it. You don't need to talk about it. Come on, there's bigger things to talk about. Just trying everything, going after Rosie O'Donnell. He tried every shiny object. And it's possible, to your point, that maybe there's an ulterior motive to throw people off by doing this. So I will start with that. Secondly, in terms of the letter itself, there's another theory I have. I just looked it up. The movie Eyes Wide Shut came out in 1999, and Jeffrey Epstein's 50th would have been 2003, I believe. Yep. So I think these guys, are trying to kind of emulate that world a little bit because, that's probably the kind of stuff that was happening. I don't know. I can't know for sure, but it feels to me like, oh, this, he said our secret is safe and all, that movie had a lot of that kind of stuff. So it's possible he was inspired by Eyes Wide Shut. You're probably right that he didn't write it still. Maybe he had somebody there that wrote it for him, or Ghislaine Maxwell, but that feels like the kind of language that came from that movie. And then the other thing I'll say is, the problem with the first thing, I think that I would disagree with you on that first part that you said about the suing of the press. The problem is we're living in a time now where the press, if they choose to, and we've seen it on Fox, just lie, just openly lie. And we saw it with the elections and the voting machines. And you just said right now that Jesse Waters said something about Gavin Newsom that was a total lie. So those guys are lying, and there should be some way to hold them accountable. The problem is that Donald Trump says everything that is against him is a lie. And we all know it's not a lie, but he has this, this power now to sue everybody. I originally thought that he was just going to unleash his DOJ on everyone, but instead he's just bullying everyone. And I know a lot of us are. I didn't expect all of these organizations like your Columbia universities, all those law firms, all these other places to just bow down, and they have Paramount bow down, and that's very disheartening. That's us telling the dictator, you know what, sir, let me hold the door open while you come in and take over everything.
Yeah, I fear that too. And I don't know a lot about Eyes Wide Shut, but the idea that Trump would just follow a movie, it seemed like he's reopening Alcatraz because he watched that movie. Like, this is totally how he operates. He sees something on TV and then he just does it, like staffing his cabinet and stuff. So I think, Maz, you might be onto something there. And I have thoughts about what effect the story is gonna have, but I wanna go through a few other reactions people are having, and then I'll sum up my thoughts. But why don't we start with some of the reactions to this reporting and the lawsuit, starting with this.
This is the deep state. This is the ruling class in America. They're trying to use it to destroy President Trump. And last night, I think he understood of the Wall Street Journal, as much as he's tried to do in the big, beautiful bill and these other things to get supply side tax cuts, as much as he's tried to do, it's never enough because he has a populist nationalist movement and they hate. And this is old man Murdoch, who made the decision to come after President Trump. And I understand the lawsuit that they're putting together is going to be absolutely incredible.
So earlier this week, the right-wing media were in basically open civil war over the topic of Donald Trump and his obvious cover-up when it comes to Epstein. And some of them got calls from Donald Trump, like Charlie Kirk, and then announced they were done with it. And then they got DMs from their fans, and then they had to be back on it. And they've all been trying to figure out, what are we supposed to say right now that isn't going to get us banned from MAGA or lose us our audience and the fat paychecks that we get? And that's been very tough for them. But this news cycle is a lot easier because now they can grandstand and how aggrieved they are for Donald Trump against the fake news media and as Steve Bannon says, the ruling elite, which I guess is reporters at the Wall Street Journal, not the billionaires that all are unified in support of Donald Trump and control every branch of government. It's just the most obviously fake populism. But anyway, yeah, they're defending him, and they've got some theories behind why the Wall Street Journal in particular published this, but I'll let Steve Bannon get us into that.
We're so back. Look, everyone is firing on all cylinders. The MAGA movement is completely united behind this fight right now. And I said, wait a minute, what do they have? And I kept getting back, they don't have anything. They have a story about a thing. And I said, well, where did they get this? And then it comes out that it's this letter that nobody's actually seen. I said, wait a minute. So what is your source if you don't actually have the letter? And I'm starting to think, Steve, I put this up on Twitter last night, that the source has something to do with former elements of the Department of Justice. I tweeted out last night that it sounds like their source might be Ghislaine Maxwell over some prison phone or something like this. Then you've got the great Susan Crabtree. She sends me a message. She's got it up now as well over at Real Clear Politics, saying that the author of this report at the Wall Street Journal is a former member of the Department of Justice who was directly tied to who? Glenn Simpson, the founder of Fusion GPS.
Okay, so we're back. We're unified. I mean, nothing has changed about Donald Trump's cover up. We're just now we can ignore it and we won't get yelled at by our base. We're totally fine with him covering up for the child trafficking and everything. Please stop pressuring us about that. Let's just talk about the media. And then we can spin these conspiracy theories and this is the tweet that dude seemed to be pointing to. So it's serious because it starts with hashtag breaking in all caps scoop. So one of the two reporters that worked on this story previously worked for a different company, and that company was involved with a woman, and her husband was Glenn Simpson, and he previously founded Fusion GPS, which they think is involved with a different hoax. So we're done with this thing. Obviously, Donald Trump didn't send the letter, right? I don't know. I don't take the strange health supplements that they do. Maybe with those chemicals coursing through your body, that makes sense. But to a rational person, it does not. So they're coming up with all sorts of stuff to distract from this. The rest are just denying it. Megyn Kelly says it's the dumbest attempted hit piece I've ever read. Elon Musk says the letter sounds bogus. Matt Walsh is saying they don't even provide a photo of the letter, which, by the way, it's entirely possible that they're pulling a Mother Jones with the signal leak, where they're not presenting it so that the right can go hard against the fact that it hasn't been presented, and then they can present it and get a second news cycle out of it, which is entirely possible. Maybe they won't. JD Vance says it's complete and utter bull s. Where is it? Does anyone honestly believe this sounds like Donald Trump? Which we've said, no, it doesn't necessarily sound like Donald Trump. Now, a Sharpied picture of boobies does sound like Donald Trump, and that was scrawled on the letter. So, but I just want to say, is like Trump, Cenk, you had said previously this doesn't really add much, which I agree. We know Trump is an absolute creep who's partied with Jeffrey Epstein. I get why they're so excited about this, because now it takes some of the pressure from MAGA off their back. But I have a rule. Kind of, feel free to disagree. All of these people saying, I don't believe it's true. A person stating that they don't believe something is true is meaningless if you can be sure that they wouldn't care if it was true if it became indisputable. Like if they found the letter and it was proven Donald Trump once held it up in a photo, none of these people would care about it. So what do I care if they don't believe it or not? It's utterly pointless. They're just posturing. Like they don't believe this is true. Did they care about him talking to Billy Bush about how you can grab women's genitals? Did they care about the jury that found him liable for sexual abuse or the dozens of other women who have accused him of assault and harassment? The Stormy Daniels, had they cared about literally any of that? Well, then if they haven't, then they're obviously biased when it comes to this stuff. Again, it's not the most important story, but they have no credibility when it comes to evaluations of Donald Trump's character or actions.
Yeah, but John, I'm gonna disagree with you a little bit because all of that, you're not wrong about any of those facts, but these guys were just criticizing Trump for not releasing the Epstein files, right?
I mean, not some of these last people, not
right, but not JD Vance, right? But Bannon and Posobiec were for sure.
Well, and I said this is why they're so excited about this. It gets the pressure off them, and now they can just turn back to attacking the libs.
And which was my point.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to be honest, I hadn't seen that MAGA reaction, right? And so it pretty much confirms exactly what I was saying. Easy pivot, right? Fake news, that's it, we're back on Team Trump. Daddy, don't be too mad at us, etc. And it allows them to pivot away. I'd be curious to see if Trump drops the suit at some point, like a couple of weeks later or a couple of months later. Because if he does and he doesn't keep going forward with it, look, let's put it this way. Whether you're this administration overall, or mainly the US government. If you're the US government and you're covering up for these sex crimes, which the US government is definitively covering up for these crimes, they say that they're not going to prosecute a single person. But we know there were a lot of people who raped those girls. And so you can have all sorts of semantic debates about, oh, was it this or was it that or how many or but is it a file? Is it not a file? Is it fake? Is it this? It doesn't, guys. We know that the girls were raped, and they're saying we're never going to tell you who raped them, and we're never going to bring them to justice. That's the bottom line. And if you're the US government that has made that decision repeatedly through several administrations, this is gold for you. I mean, how did you get this lucky? Now, they're not talking about the US government. They're not talking about the cover up. They're having a debate about a document we've never seen, right? So it allows all of MAGA to come back onto Trump's team and go, that's it, everything is fake, just like he said. It's so helpful to them. Half those guys were tearing into the Trump administration just a couple of days ago. So if this was not coordinated in any way, shape, or form, which is entirely possible, then the US government just got incredibly lucky with this Wall Street Journal piece that I think has actually hurt the cause of finding out what actually happened. So look, these are all interesting. And by the way, Miles, you made a good point about Dominion. When a lie is big enough and specifically harms a company like Dominion, they're claiming is stolen election, etc. Yeah, at some point you have to defend yourself. If something is defamatory enough, at some point you have to defend yourself. I'm just saying that Trump has now made it so that a hair trigger, any criticism, any story about him, etc. Sue. And now that Gavin did it, and Gavin didn't do it on a thing that was as big as Dominion. It was kind of a tiny story, right? So it was like a run-of-the-mill Fox News line that there's like 18 of those a day, right? So now it's like a factory of politicians suing, and it's just a terrible precedent. But overall, Maz, it looks like this has allowed his, in a kind of ironic way, Trump's guys to rally back around him.
Yeah, and that goes back to kind of what you started by saying, and me saying that you made a good point. It's possible Rupert Murdoch is helping him in this case, and they just kind of, behind the scenes. I'll get people distracted. It's kind of it's like finding an arsonist, and he's got a blowtorch in his hand, and he's got a flamethrower, and he's got a Molotov cocktail, and then someone comes by and goes, "Hey, look, I found a match," and then they go, "Oh, he planted that match." And now we're all going after that rather than going like, wait a minute, this guy's got all this stuff he's been holding and setting fires with. And that's to John's point about, we know the guy's a creep. We know he was close with Epstein. There's no doubt about it. Our focus should stay on that. And by the way, this client list, they could just ask Ghislaine Maxline. What's her name? Ghislaine Maxline?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
Ghislaine Maxwell. They could just ask Ghislaine Maxwell to write the list. She knows the list. So just sit her down and have her write the list. But then again, he'd probably sue her too, so you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah, they make it sound like, oh, it's impossible. You're totally right. She's right there. She's in prison. She could give us the list. They'll go, oh, no. We couldn't possibly do that. Why can't you do that? Oh, all right, you know what? Give us a list. Otherwise, we're gonna prosecute you to put you in jail for another 20 years. You deserve a 200-year sentence. Okay, so, oh, golly gee, we could not figure out how to do that. Oh, is that, I mean, come on. Guys, you know how many documents there are in the Epstein file? It's actually, that fact has been released. It is the equivalent of 100,000 books, 300-page books, 100,000 of them. And so-
No names in them.
No, but like, golly gee, the government just can't seem to find anything in those documents, right? Oh, okay, so that's why we have to talk about a letter that no one saw and have the whole conversation be distracted into that. Yeah. So on the second day of this story, it looks like it, in my opinion, it actually did damage and is counterproductive.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe you'll feel a bit better after the next segment. To the MAGA people in the audience who might be feeling a little bit muddled with these recent developments, I will leave you with this question. Have the pedophiles been brought to justice or haven't they? I know you're mad about the Wall Street Journal, but is it still being covered up? Yeah, it's still being covered up. That should still bother you. We'll be back in a minute.
So let's go to our viewers and members. TH wrote in on Super Chat. Fox has a list, that's why Wall Street Journal posted it. Trump's going to file and find out they have it, drop the lawsuit and then step down. They passed the tax cuts, don't need them anymore so business can go on as usual. No, Trump's not gonna step down and I don't think it'll happen in that way. But TH, you're onto something, right? What did I say? After they get the tax cuts, then they don't need Trump anymore. So that's another alternative theory and a plausible one. And we all have to keep guessing because our government is such enormous liars. They never tell us the truth, which forces us to guess into these theories. So is it possible that Murdoch was like, yeah, I got my tax cuts, I'm done with this guy, right? So yeah, publish anything you like. Yeah, that's also possible. And Murdoch's never really liked Trump. Antisocial Dragon says, I don't get it, Jenks, since you're such a right-wing sellout now, why hasn't the Trump mafia reached out and bribed you to stop talking about Epstein? Yeah, that is strange, isn't it? I mean, I keep pounding away at Epstein and Trump. I wonder if the people who said that were liars. Okay, so now we go to our YouTube members. Lady Fukanti says, totally eyes wide shut. Papa John, you have to watch it. I don't know about that. Lady T, it's a mid movie.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think it's a mid movie, but yeah, but it's kind of like,
oh, you're gonna
everybody knows from Bart. Like you almost have to know it for pop culture. So sure, why don't you?
I know it's masks. I know masks.
Okay, all right. Okay. In the real world, their masks are the U.S. government. Okay. Cyber Dragon says essential reading by Jay Idarola. When you do the Trump readings. Hey, David Ryder says fun PBS, not Israel. Here. We'll get to that a little bit later. Cineologist says, I think Trump is slowly losing power. I vote for stand with Wall Street Journal. Certainly on the freedom of the press stuff, I do. Fidel Castro Oil writes in on Twitch, I'm fairly certain that this only adds one thing to the conversation. It's a direct message to Donald Trump himself. We, whomever, have incriminating documents between you and Epstein. Here's just a taste. I actually thought that too. That is also another good possibility. And two of these things can be true at the same time. Civic Folly says, Trump's a modern day Andy Warhol. It's kind of a funny comment, but I totally get it, and I agree with you. He's kind of a modern artist of BS and propaganda and lies. Yeah. But you're probably talking about the paintings, okay, the drawings and stuff. But anyways, the 505 Wrecking Ball said, I will never understand people who thought grab him by the pee is a sign of a hero who will stop pedophiles. It's similar to a point John made, and you're right, and you phrase it in a hilarious way.
Vertigo by Alfred Hitchcock? It's not very good.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Maz with you guys. Also, James Donovan and Ray Human. The humans are here. And thank you for joining by hitting that big, beautiful join button below the video. And CDN Norse Dog Dad, thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. And said, also gave a super chat with a message. Cenk, CDN means Canadian. Oh, finally, thank you. Now I could just say that. Okay, John.
Okay, let's jump into this. After a week of open rebellion on the topic of Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump needs to get them off his back. And he doesn't really want any information to be released, but he has to at least act like they're gonna release something. And so for now, he's come up with this. He posted on Truth Social, based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked AG Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval. This scam perpetuated by the Democrats should end right now. Yeah, he seems to really care about getting justice in this. It's again, if you're one of his critics or whatever, if you're a MAGA person, he's spitting in your face again. He doesn't want to do even this, but he's doing it, so let's evaluate it. Will this actually matter? Is this actually significant? There are two reasons to believe that it's not. And I'm gonna save the one that just came out for just a minute or two. We first wanna go to the senior legal analyst at CNN, who's gonna put into scale how little this actually represents in terms of all that we know about Jeffrey Epstein and the investigation.
What Donald Trump said to do there is not to turn over all the Epstein files. I really wanna make sure people understand the context here of what he did say he wanted released, because it is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of those files. We know from the FBI's memo last week that the entirety of the Epstein files is 300 gigabytes of information. I looked it up, I talked to a tech guy. That's equal to about 100,000 ebooks. Okay, so think about a book, 300 pages, 100,000 of those. That's how much information's in the entire Epstein file. The grand jury transcripts means the written transcript that the court reporter takes of whoever went into the grand jury and testified. So already you are leaving out tons of documents. Most witnesses as a federal prosecutor, don't even go into the grand jury. They just talk to you in a conference room, not in the grand jury. So we're talking about a 1%, 2%.
So already, if you were hoping that maybe this means we'll get to the bottom of this, we're gonna get to the bottom of 0.5% of it, perhaps. But still, that's something, right? Yeah, well, he's got a safeguard in place because since Donald Trump requested that Pam Bondi do that, she has now requested it. And by the way, the judge could block this from coming out or could slow roll it and it would take a while, but whatever, she requested it, that's something, right? Well, in the request from the Justice Department to get this info out, they said that they want redactions of anything victim related, and you can sort of understand why they would do that. Okay, you don't want to release information about the victims if they don't want it to come out, but also other personal identifying information. So in theory, the names not only of the victims, but any information about other people that could point to their identity could also be redacted in this already extremely small and carefully curated sample of the information from the investigation. So this is not only very small, Cenk, but they have added firewalls against the revelation of anyone who's actually done anything wrong.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised they didn't go to this trick earlier because there's a couple of things I thought, man, they bungled the living crap out of this because there are two tricks they could have done that were so easy, but Trump's so dumb, he couldn't even think of those. One is the one that Alex Jones suggested after the fact, where he was like, oh, just say the Democrats destroyed all the evidence. He just says it on air, right? Right? And Trump's so dumb, he didn't even think of that. That's so simple, right? Oh, we had him, but son of a gun, Biden must have destroyed it all, right? And then you could say, yeah, but then why didn't you release it in your first term? But it doesn't matter, because that would have totally worked on MAGA, right? He wouldn't have lost any of his own voters if they had done that, in my opinion, right? And the second one is this, where they release some crumbs and they're like, that's it, mission accomplished, we told you. I mean, what else do you want? It sounds so official, the grand jury testimony. I mean, we're giving you 5% of 0.5%, right? And by the way, if I was them and I wanted to hide it, I would have released 2 or 3 things, all equaling about 1.5% of the news and go, that's how I talk, ladies and gentlemen, I got him. And then hope that they don't notice you're not actually prosecuting anyone.
Yeah.
You haven't said a single name and you haven't gone after a single person, right? But it probably would have worked. Now when they do this, the Wall Street Journal story rallied a lot of MAGA, as we saw earlier in the show, to Trump's side. This I don't think is gonna have much of an effect. Because to be fair to those guys, remember when they did the part 1 of the Epstein files and they had the the folders and stuff. People did actually look through the folders in the left and the right, and they were like, yeah, this is a nothing burger. So that trick didn't work. So like in the case of the grand jury testimony, like if they were smart, they would leave in things that are a tiny bit relevant, so they can say, well, that's real, right? But not actually name any names, not prosecute anyone, etc. But if it's complete nothing burger, then they'll have misplayed it, because then people will go back to being frustrated. That's my sense of it. What do you think, Mas?
Yeah, we live in this world of alternative facts, and the fact that they're going to take this and redact all that stuff is kind of like what they did with those January 6th tapes. They said, look, they were just tourists. Look, if we show the camera angle from this other entrance where nobody's breaking windows, then we will reveal to our followers and our constituents that this was not an attempt to overthrow democracy. So I think that you guys are right about that. This is their way of putting the crumbs out. And Cenk, you said something that was interesting. Was Alex Jones said he should have said that the Democrats got rid of the evidence. And Donald Trump's so stupid, he went the other way around and he said the Democrats created the evidence. So he was saying, all of a sudden he started blaming Obama and Biden. And there was I don't know if you saw this clip of Bill O'Reilly defending the whole thing and saying, why did the Biden administration, that when they prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein, they could have released this information. And then the person interviewing him goes, Jeffrey Epstein died in 2019. Biden did not prosecute him. And then Bill O'Reilly goes, oh, well, then I stand corrected. So they've been really just looking for the out. And it seems like you're right. The distraction now of that letter that came out is really kind of a way that's taking the shiny object out of our view. So I don't know where it's going to go. It's also, by the way, we know all, like the guy is a bad guy. He's been a bad guy, and yet they've continued to just accept it. I don't even know if his name came out in the files, they're going to spin it somehow, right? I wasn't there for X, Y, and Z. Other people were there for X, Y, and Z, and so he's really gotten a pass, and a lot of it has to do with the Republican Party and his constituents really not caring. I think that really he's given them the excuse to be the bigoted racist that they want to be, and they'll stand with him to the end of time.
Yeah, one quick addition to what Maz just said. So if you're a MAGA guy and you're dying for Trump not to be involved in this, and you think, well, actually, that whole thing about Biden destroying the documents, that sounds pretty good. That sounds yummy, right? Well, remember, they said the documents never existed. And then Trump changed it like 3 days later to, no, they did exist, but they were fake, and they were started by Obama. So, but if Obama created it, then Trump definitely had the files in his first term. Oops, he's so dumb. And this is so important, right? This is the thing his base cares so much about, that he promised them. And he's so damn lazy. He couldn't take 5 minutes to think of a good excuse. Yeah. Instead, he bungled it all over his face. They don't exist. They're fake. They were created by Obama. Yeah. So and he even got like the most hardcore MAGA to doubt him. That's how dumb he is in how he handled this.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's all, like, there's the Obama made, and it was Comey, and it was blah, 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 and maybe the whatever. There's all this stuff, it's just dust kicked up. But if you're like a MAGA person, and you care about this story, and you have for a really long time, regardless of whatever the latest Truth Social message says, what he would have you believe, at the basis level, is that Jeffrey Epstein was the criminal, and nobody else did anything wrong. The elites are all cool, they're all innocent. Do you believe that? Like, fundamentally, do you buy Trump's story that it's all a hoax and nobody else did anything wrong? There's no elite cabal of pedophiles or whatever. It was Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. That was pretty much it. For years and years and years, tons of people from the UK, the United States, wherever, on his plane, a private island. It's just him, actually. That's it. That's what Donald Trump demands that you accept as true.
Absurd, and you know it. We've been principled all throughout. We said the files should be released when it was Democrats and when it was Republicans. So we'll see how people react going forward. Are they just going to run back to daddy and forget how much they claim they cared about pedophiles? Or is this just one of the waves? And the next wave they come back and go, to John's point, yeah, but where are the goddamn clients?
Yeah.
Like the rest is just BS.
I think we should probably take our last break of the hour.
Yep, we'll be right back. All right, back during the break here. Let's go to Super Chat again. Michael Catalano wrote in, a couple of people made this point, but he has direct experience. He said, I had a low-level security clearance at my old job. Oftentimes, copies of classified documents have distinguishing marks to identify leakers. I'd say the Post is simply protecting their source, or the Wall Street Journal in that case. Yeah, other people talked about watermarks that they might have on the document. That's why they might not have been able to show a picture of the document. And it's a good explanation. Elliot writes, and I feel like the story will be discredited in some way, and that will give Trump the exit from the Epstein saga he desperately needs. Now, if all of this was pre-planned as a way to get past the Epstein story and be a convenient way of discrediting the story overall. What'll happen next is at some point, after some period of time, Wall Street Journal will give Donald Trump money because of the lawsuit and go, oh yeah, you got us, it was fake, here's $10 million. That way Trump wins, Rupert Murdoch wins, the US government that's covering it up wins, everybody wins. And in hindsight, all that Trump and MAGA will remember was, oh, Trump was right. They tried to smear him. And it didn't work, and he got him again. So if Wall Street Journal pays off Donald Trump with this fake lawsuit that he has, then you'll know the whole story and all of it was actually not meant to bury Trump, but to help protect Trump. We don't know that yet. Let's see how things develop. And that's not my leading theory, by the way, okay? But that is a possibility, and if it goes in that direction, then it becomes my leading theory. Arsenal said, all that matters, the law and order president is preventing the prosecution of one of the largest crimes since Watergate, calling his most loyal supporters weak and stupid. Please refer back to what he said about Ivanka. So yeah, about how she was hot, and if she wasn't his daughter, he'd be trying to date her, because he is utterly disgusting, right? And you're absolutely right. It's not just all of this. Is MAGA gonna forget that he called them weak and stupid?
Bad people, etc. Sly J says in YouTube member section, TYT had a big beautiful before Trump did. That's right, our big beautiful button. Click it down below, be part of the Young Turks. In the member section on TYT.com, Stiff Upper Lib says, on a scale of 1 to 10, Johnny Pie is a 9. He would be a 10, but he said vertigo, not very good. Wrong answer, Johnny Pie. Okay, so that cost you a point, that's important. It's no rear window, is what I'll say.
Okay, so Eclectic writes in, we have to disagree with Cenk's take on this, or I have to. The Wall Street Journal story is super important because there are millions of people, especially on the right, who do not know that it's well established that Trump and Epstein were buddies. And if true, the drawing on that note was particularly pervy, and the note clearly goes beyond just being casual friends with Epstein. So Eclectic, that's a great point, and you're right about that. But two things can be true at the same time. If Murdoch's trying to protect the real people who did this, and he doesn't really like Trump, it throws Trump under the bus and protects the real culprits. So both of us can be right. All right, back on the Young Turks, Cenk, John, and Maz with you guys now. If you want to check out Maz on an upcoming show he's got, go to mazdrabani.com where you can see all of his upcoming appearances. Okay, John, what's next?
Okay, let's turn now to the latest potential victim in Donald Trump's crusade against the media.
Big news from the world of late night stunned a lot of people.
Yeah.
Stephen Colbert came on his show open last night and said it's over.
But the timing of this actually is terrible, and it's terrible because you had the settlement with Donald Trump, and then you had Colbert and Jon Stewart criticizing that decision. And then a week later, they're saying, oh, unfortunately, we don't have the money to continue this.
Yeah, it definitely seems suspicious, and not just to that show. A lot of people have a lot of theories about why it is that at this time of all times, Stephen Colbert's show is being killed in May of next year. We're gonna get to what Stephen has had to say about this, some of the other reactions, but what was your initial reaction, Cenk, when you first heard this news yesterday?
I'm actually really torn on this, and that's part of why we're doing the poll that we are. So the show's live at 6 o'clock Monday through Friday. So be part of this show. We got the live chat question. Why did CBS cancel Late Show? A, financial reasons. B, to appease Trump. But on our website, tyt.com, appeasing Trump is much more likely to win, of course. But we have a little bit longer version of it that I like a little bit better. To get their merger approved, A. B, because the show wasn't making money anymore. C, because Stephen Colbert called them out on air, and we're gonna tell you about that in a minute as well. And executives do not like that, generally speaking. And then all of the above. I'm leaning towards all of the above for reasons that I'll explain in a minute. But John, more.
Yeah, and I understand why the executives wouldn't like it being pointed out that they gave a bribe to the president, but I've always thought a great way to avoid that is to not bribe the president.
Yeah, I mean,
seems easy. Don't write the check.
Yeah, if Colbert had like a gratuitous insult of a random executive, hey, you know, the VP in human resources is ugly, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you could take offense at that, right? But after you give an obvious $16 million bribe to the president, your top comic is likely to point that out in his skit, right? Or in his monologue in that case. Of course, that's literally part of his job.
Exactly, and it's what he's been doing for a very long time. But that said, why don't we go to Stephen Colbert? Last night on his show, he announced, "I'm not being replaced. This is all just going away." And I do want to say that the folks at CBS have been great partners. We get to do this show for each other every day, all day. And I've had the pleasure and the responsibility of sharing what we do every day with you in front of this camera for the last 10 years. Now, bear in mind as we start to evaluate why this might be, that The Late Show was the most watched late night show at the 11:35 p.m. hour in terms of total views in the second quarter of 2025. And CBS is being very clear that it has nothing to do with anything except raw business, saying it's not related in any way to the show's performance, content, or other matters happening at Paramount. Our admiration, affection, and respect for the talents of Stephen Colbert and his incredible team made this agonizing decision even more difficult. But that statement, I think it's really suspicious to a lot of people because it has nothing to do with the performance of the show, but it's just financial. But the performance of the show is good. Now, that doesn't mean that it's bringing in a ton of money necessarily, but it's weird to say both of those. I mean, if you're canceling a show just for the money, then the performance clearly was a problem. And then to add in, or other matters happening at Paramount, I mean, as we're gonna get into, I think people can fill in the blanks pretty clearly there. And so they're trying to do this merger with Skydance. And so Donald Trump gets to basically say whether that happens or not. I mean, in a rational presidency, it would be some semi-independent agency, and President Obama, President Biden never would have weighed in on that sort of thing, but Trump 100% will. And so that makes people really suspicious about this, considering especially the Paramount bribe that happened just a couple of weeks ago. And so look, admittedly, ad revenue on late night television has been trending down, and those ad spots are now worth less than they used to. It's, people are watching streaming services and vertical video and all sorts of stuff. But that said, it is still bringing in money. And so it just seems suspicious, especially considering the time and especially considering how criminally sensitive Donald Trump is to criticism, how often he's personally attacked Stephen Colbert, and as you'll see, delighted in this decision, by the way. He didn't play it cool at all. And so that's why I think people have a lot of questions.
Yeah, Maz, you're a comic, what do you think?
Yeah, it's not about the money. If it were about the money, they would, first of all, what are they gonna put in place of it? What are they gonna put, like what's another program that's gonna bring more eyeballs to this late hour? What is that? This is your best show. This is a show that is an Emmy-winning show. It is a show that has won several other prizes. I stream it I get my news through it every night. Every night I stream it on YouTube. So it's killing it in the streams. It's obviously the numbers aren't what it used to be because of all the competition and all the other stuff that's happened and how the world is now on streaming. But it is not about the money. It's about him calling them out. It's about them knowing they did wrong, which, by the way, if they really had been, if they weren't guilty of bribing, then they would have allowed him to keep going because they could have laughed it off and been like, oh gosh, Stephen's just saying something. But it was actually a settlement we made because there was a real reason for us to make this settlement. It's also openly, it's almost flagrantly a political thing. And the fact that we all know the whole thing with the 60 Minutes and the Kamala Harris and the edit and all that, it's just, as a comedian, I've been on Colbert, and I think you have too, Cenk, and he's smart, he's classy, he's funny, he's an amazing person, amazing host. And as a comedian, when Trump came into power, I knew he was gonna come after the late night talk show host. I just didn't know how. I thought it might be like sending the IRS after them. I thought it might be some other thing. But the fact that he's using something like this to have the corporations put pressure on their stars, that again is very authoritarian. That's very, very scary about the future of where America is going. When you start squashing the comedians and not allowing comedians to make fun of our leaders, we are heading into a dictatorship very fast. And if it were about the money, by the way, I guarantee you if they'd gone to Stephen Colbert and said, hey, Stephen, we're paying you X, Y, and Z. It's costing this much. In order to keep these 200 people working, are you willing to do it for a little bit less or find some other ways of profit sharing? He seems like the kind of guy that would have been like, yeah, let's keep it going. And he seems like somebody who enjoys doing it and probably would have gone for another 5-10 years if he could. And my hope is that somehow there's a revolt or a push as the story comes out of people maybe protesting against CBS, maybe boycotting CBS or something to push either the decision to be reversed, which I'm not holding my breath for, or some other network to pick him up. Now, obviously it can't be the majors, but maybe some streamer or something, because he's just too good to not be on air.
Yeah, Maz just made one of the most persuasive points in TYT history. I'm gonna change my vote. I'm gonna explain why in a second, but first, John.
That's amazing. Yeah, look, I imagine that there will be a big revolt because no offense, I don't know why I would ever tune into that channel if it wasn't for Stephen Colbert. And I think that's true for a lot of people, especially people who are on the younger side, much younger than me. And I love your point, Maz. I think there's gonna be a pushback. They can reverse this. And if there's a big pushback and the reason is purely financial, then it makes perfect sense to reverse it. But if you're lying, and it's not financial, and it has to do with the merger, or it has to do with Donald Trump, it really doesn't matter what the pushback is, and you'll never reverse it no matter what. So it's gonna be fascinating to watch how they likely do nothing in the face of what's going to be probably an open revolt from his current fans.
Okay, this guy just got juice here. So I'm now gonna have to create a second account on tyt.com to cancel out my first vote, and then a third one to vote in the right direction. But anyways, and I want to share part of a theory that I'm surprised people aren't talking about more for this story. But that's in a second. But first, why was Maz's point so good? Halfway through, he got me to wonder, yeah, wait a minute, maybe we can say definitely that it wasn't the money. By the end, I was like, you're totally right. So why? Because guys, the last point that Maz made actually ended it. Normally what happens in media is if it's about the money, you renegotiate. It's the #1 show in late night. It's the show that goes most viral for them. In fact, it's the only show that goes viral for them. It is an important and valuable property. A media company, I know, I run this company. A media company doesn't give up an asset that valuable without trying to salvage it, right? You go, okay, Stephen, these are crazy times. We lost half the revenue because of the deterioration of television, etc. Stephen, what do you think about taking a pay cut of this or that? Can you do it with 150 staff instead of 200 staff, etc.? For them to just go, nope, I'm done with it. No, Maz is totally right. It's not about the money. And the other point that he made is, wait, so what else are you gonna do in that time slot to make more money? But wait a minute, let's say that you did a syndicated show and it didn't cost you much. And I know the financial dynamics of this, right? So you could put a syndicated show in there, maybe you squeak out a tiny profit, etc. But then what are you gonna do with the rest of your lineup? If none of it makes money, well, that's part of why they're trying to dump it. But then Skydance, who's buying it, what are you buying it for if some of their most successful shows
just being canceled,
aren't profitable, right? So none of that makes any sense. I'm withdrawing all of the above. It is not the money. Maz is right. So what's the theory on this that we haven't discussed? Maybe it was part of the settlement. Maybe it was just they said to Trump, we'll give you $16 million and Colbert's head. Now, we're not gonna write Colbert's head on the document, obviously, right? But we'll make it go away and we'll take out your top critic in late night. I mean, I don't know that to be a fact at all, but it certainly seems plausible, doesn't it?
Yeah, and just think about the chilling effect on other critics of the president that have shows. Like, what if your show, the network you work for, wants to do some sort of deal or doesn't want its broadcast license pulled? Trump declared victory, saying he loves that Colbert got fired, of course. And he says, I hear that Jimmy Kimmel is next. Is Jimmy Kimmel gonna be comfortable providing critical commentary of this regime now?
Or by the way,
I think
no. Can I just one quick thing about that? So it's not that Kimmel will be uncomfortable. Because Kimmel's, I think, done well enough in his life that he'll almost want to provoke, right? To etc. But the show's going to be uncomfortable. The executive producer is going to say, "But Jimmy, we got 200 people working here.
Yeah, that's
they
right.
got families, right?" And is ABC going to be uncomfortable? They already paid a bribe to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And why did they do that? They paid him right before their executives are going to have to be deposed. The executives do not want to be deposed in these lawsuits under any circumstance. So they know that if Trump sues, they almost have to settle. So now the company is gonna be like, hey, Jimmy, don't. And even if Jimmy Kimmel does it and he does it for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and then they get rid of him, certainly the next guy isn't gonna do it at all.
Yeah.
Someone without tremendous power and leverage is definitely not going to do it. So this sends a massive chilling effect on all of media. Do not criticize politicians. Your career will be ended. Mox.
Yeah, I think we got two powers going against each other. You have the comedians who are gonna want to lean in now and make more fun and criticize Trump more, whether it's on social media, on television, whatever it is. Then you got the corporations who are going to fear the whatever comes from Trump and the way he bullies using the government, and that might lead to Instagram saying, oh, one of our new policies is no making fun of Trump because we don't want to lose X, Y, and Z license, or we're trying to buy this other corporation. So right now, I think it falls on comedians to lean in more and more. That's what the reason we're comedians is because we like to poke the bear. And we should poke the bear. And as scary as it might be, we got to do it because we need to keep exposing this, because we need to have Stephen Colbert's back in this situation. And yeah, it's a heartbreaking day to see what's happened. And I personally, I remember doing shows in Egypt in it was like 2007, 2008. That's when Hosni Mubarak was still the president. And when we got there, the promoters asked us, they said, do any of you guys have a joke about Hosni Mubarak? And we're like, no, we don't. And he goes, good, because we got a call from the Ministry of Information saying the comedians cannot do any jokes about Hosni Mubarak. And as a matter of fact, a couple months before we got there, some journalist had written an article where he said Hosni Mubarak was looking old these days and they threw him in jail. So we are now closer to Egypt under Hosni Mubarak than we are to a democracy.
Yeah, I got to build off of that because that's such a good point. Because in Turkey, they did the same. Erdogan does it all the time. The current president, he's been slowly killing off democracy. And they did a cartoon about him, banned him. Okay, and then sometimes we'll arrest comics who make jokes about Erdogan. He sued something I forget if it was a German government or a German publication for running a cartoon about him. Like, by the way, I shouldn't give Trump any ideas. Now he's gonna sue the whole world, right? But if you're on the right and you like Trump and you didn't like Colbert's jokes about Trump, grow up. What did you say before? You said, oh, the stupid left has this cancel culture, right? Oh, they're canceling our jokes. So what?
Legalize comedy.
Yeah, legalize comedy. So should we legalize comedy? Or if daddy's feelings are hurt, should we ban comics? This is textbook cancel culture. They literally canceled them.
Yeah.
It's the most literal thing there is. And I love what Maz is saying. All the comedians out there, go forward, okay? I mean, hashtag stand with Colbert and make the dirtiest, best jokes you got about Trump and do it again and again and again, or hashtag the North remembers, okay? But whatever it is, comedians, this is Trump challenging you more than anything on the left ever challenged you, saying if you tell jokes about politicians, we're gonna take away your living. You should not stand for that. You should fight back super aggressively.
Yeah.
Okay, All right, guys, we are out of time. Okay, all right. Every day we don't get to a story and it drives me crazy. Maz, where's the next show?
I'm actually going to Australia to do shows. So if there's any viewers in Australia, I'll be in Australia and New Zealand starting next week. And then after that, San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Boston. It's all at mazjobrani.com. Come out, see a live show. I think you'll have a good time.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
you could also see Maz's videos on Rebel HQ on YouTube. You can see Damage Report every day at 1 p.m. live, either on tyt.com, any of the platforms we're on, or obviously check out the Damage Report on YouTube. All right, guys, when we come back, there was an Israel funding bill that the left and the right united on, all 6 of them. Everyone else said, we vote for Israel, not America. We'll explain when we come back. Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like tyt.com/join, and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Drop it like it's prosecutions of Epstein's clients. All right, back on TYT, new power panel for you guys. Cenk Uygur, Yasmin Aliyah Khan, and Jackson White. Jackson's podcast is Host of Politics and Paper. Yasmin's podcast is Modern Context, and they're both on Rebel HQ on YouTube. All right, great to see you guys. Good to be with you again. Lots of stories. Yas, take it away.
All right, let's get right into this first story.
My amendment would strike $500 million in funding for nuclear-armed Israel's missile defense system. And it's important to phrase it that way. Israel is a nuclear-armed nation, which is very capable of defending themselves, and they have been proving that so as we've watched on the world stage. The US already provides Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment seeking to cut $500 million in military aid for Israel failed 422 to 6 on the House floor yesterday. So Cenk, I'm gonna tell you and our viewers who the other 5 who voted for the amendment were. But I think the more shocking part of this story for people will be some of the people who didn't vote for this amendment. What do you think?
Yeah, that's the same thing I was gonna say. I mean, some of the folks that didn't vote for it are puzzling, but I'm gonna give you an answer as to why they voted the way that they did. But if you're still in the camp of no, we're not gonna give any right-wingers or Republicans credit for anything. I mean, you can't ask for anything more than Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene saying, let's cut funding to Israel, at least on this issue, right? So I give them way more credit on this issue than the overwhelming majority of Democrats. But we'll discuss it and you'll see why.
Absolutely. So her amendment to the House's defense appropriations bill would have cut funding for the Israeli Cooperative Program, an agreement through which the US provides Israel $500 million for programs for missile defense. So that includes $60 million for their Iron Dome system. And she's correct though, that the United States already provides Israel with $3.3 billion annually in what the State Department calls foreign military financing. Nonetheless, only 6 people voted in favor of her amendment, including her. So other than Greene, those other lawmakers were, as Cenk said, Representative Thomas Massie, who is the only Republican. And then also we have Al Green, Summer Lee, Ilhan Omar, and Rashida Tlaib. So Congresswoman Betty McCollum actually spoke out in opposition to the amendment on the House floor, arguing that since the money that Greene was looking to cut is meant for Israel's defensive systems, not its offensive systems, it would compromise Israel's safety. And Republican Congressman Randy Fine went even further than that, accusing Greene of being America last.
US aid typically accounts for 15 to 20% of Israel's defense budget, even though Israel, nuclear-armed Israel, has universal health care for their citizens and subsidized college for their citizens. And they're less than $400 billion in debt.
I rise in opposition to this America Last amendment and reject the premise of the arguments that are being made. There are 600,000 Americans who live in Israel, and 1 rocket has been fired against every 23 of them. 26,000 rockets since October 7th. 43 Americans killed on October 7th, 12 taken hostage. But more importantly, the research that this fund is the premise behind the Golden Dome, When we support research and development for the Iron Dome, we are creating the capability for the United States to defend itself as well. And I have news. We have a nuclear weapon too. That doesn't get you off the hook with those who are out to get you. When we pass this, when we oppose this amendment, when we vote it down, we are not only standing with Israel, we are standing with the best interests of the United States.
Jerry Nadler also announced his opposition on X, and he wrote this. He said, "I will proudly vote against Marjorie Taylor Greene's brutally anti-Israel amendment, which seeks to eliminate funding for Iron Dome and other joint US-Israel missile defense programs critical to Israel's fundamental security. I've long supported such funding, and it has been crucial to defending innocent Israeli civilians, especially in existential attacks against Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And let's be clear, the only amendment coming to the floor in the DoD funding bill that cuts funds for Israel's security, including programs like Iron Dome, is being offered by a Republican, not a Democrat." Greene actually proposed 6 amendments in total. The others included prohibiting more funding for Ukraine and also cutting funds meant for disaster relief and AIDS education in other countries, and all of them failed. And in response, she did call out her colleagues on both sides of the aisle on X, saying, "Tonight, all of my amendments to cut $1.6 billion in foreign aid out of our defense budget failed because both Republicans and Democrats refused to stop sending your hard-earned tax dollars to foreign countries." The House overall passed the overall defense funding bill in a 221 to 209 vote. 3 Republicans opposed it, while 5 Democrats joined the rest of the GOP in getting the bill across the finish line. The bill allocates about $832 billion in funding for the Department of Defense programs for fiscal year 2026. So a lot to unpack here. Cenk, I know you have some ideas on why certain people voted the way that they did vote, or why they didn't choose to support Marjorie Taylor Greene on this particular initiative. The whole idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene is America last because she doesn't want to fund Israel, which I think a lot of our Congress people forget is actually a separate country from the United States. That is kind of just a wild line of thinking to even go down, and then not even just to entertain, but then to present it to the House and in the middle of the debate. So yeah, Cenk, let's start with you. What do you think about all this? Why people voted the way they did, and why some Democrats are still so reluctant to separate themselves and this country and all of our tax dollars from Israel?
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to why people voted the way they did in a sec. But first, on the substance of the bill. So they say, this is really for defensive purposes and we need it so badly, all this missiles and stuff. And 60 of the 500 is going to Iron Dome. Wait, what's the other 440 million going to? And so in case you're not aware of how much Israel lies, and by the way, how much our politicians lie on behalf of Israel, Marie Newman, a former congresswoman, told a story right here on the Young Turks in an interview I did with her. You could find it on YouTube, where she said she voted for Iron Dome in one of the appropriation bills. And then Israel came back and asked for another $8 billion for Iron Dome. And they said, we need batteries. And she voted against that one because she said, what does that mean? You need batteries. What is the 8 billion actually going for, right? They're like, no, it's you can't know. What? I can't know? No, I'm voting no, right? And they apparently, she said afterwards, a group of Democratic Congresspeople came up to her furious, and they said, you voted against Israel. There's going to be consequences, and you could watch the interview. She said that they told her, that's it. We're going to take all your money away, and we're going to come for you in the next election cycle. By the way, they did. They spent $4 million against her, AIPAC and other affiliated groups, and she was defeated. Okay, so that gives you one explanation for why 422 members of the House voted for Israel. Because if they don't vote with Israel, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they're told they're done. Last vote you'll ever take. You put America goddamn last. You put Israel first. Otherwise, you're gonna get fired. Okay, that's one of the reasons. And so now let's get to the heart of their things. Well, I mean, Jerry Nadler says this, what a brutal bill. Israel needs this for its defense. Two portions of that. Number one, what defense? All they've done is offense for at least the last year and a half. So give them a bunch of months after October 7th for so-called self-defense, although I didn't really see any of that. All I saw was carpet bombing, right? But 75% of Gaza is destroyed. Now they're moving 2 million people into a tiny little area that former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert called a concentration camp. What defense? Then they attack Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Gaza, West Bank. It's a what defense? What defense are you talking about, right? But okay, give them all that and say, oh, well, yeah, October 7th happened. Sometimes rockets come. So, okay, they need defense. Okay, so they need it. So what? No, I don't mean like don't give them defense and I don't care if they live or die. No, I want to protect the civilians. But I also want to protect British civilians and Canadian civilians and US. We're all important allies, etc. But the UK never comes to us and say, I need defense, so you owe it to me. Give me all your money, okay? Give me $300 billion. I need it for my defense. Well, it's true, Britain does need it for defense. But why is it our responsibility? Why do we owe Israel $500 million for their defense? I got a great idea. Okay, you need it for your defense, you say, that makes sense. Then why don't you pay for it? Oh, well, you guys have the technology. I know, why don't you pay us like every other country does? No, I demand your money. And all the dogs in Congress healed. They got this mythology, like we owe them something. Like we owe them, what do we owe? Why do we owe them anything? We don't owe them. And then I asked that on social media, some guys like, oh, the Holocaust. But wait a minute, guys, the Holocaust was one of the worst things that ever happened in human history. But we didn't do the Holocaust, we saved them from the Holocaust. And that wasn't them anyway, that was innocent Jewish civilians. That wasn't the government of Israel. But even if you think it is them, well, maybe the Germans owe them. But why do we owe them for saving them from the Holocaust? It doesn't make any sense. There's no justification. Do you want to know why 98% of the crooks in Congress voted that way? Because AIPAC is the #1 donor to Congress in this election cycle. #1 donor. Anyone who doesn't tell you that in the context of this story, which by the way is literally every single mainstream media outlet, they're all giant liars covering up for the state of Israel, saying, oh, no. Oh, the AIPAC money had nothing to do with it. Oh, I'm sure. And the 17 billion we give in oil subsidies, the oil companies' donations had nothing to do with it, right? Almost everyone in mainstream media are giant liars. So that's the heart of the explanation. I have more details. I want to get to Jackson in a second. But if you're thinking, but wait a minute, I know there's good people that in this case voted in the other direction. AOC, Ro Khanna, Jamie Raskin, Jasmine Crockett, et cetera. Why did they go in that direction? Because when Israel says it's for my defense, if you don't do that, oh, you're marked for destruction. That is a scarlet letter that you won't be able to get off your, every time you run for anything. If AOC runs for governor, for a senator in New York, or she runs for president, or anyone else runs for anything, they'll be like, oh, they voted against Israel's defense. They voted with the terrorists. And you know who'll say that? Or imply it? Every mainstream media reporter, editor, publisher, because it's a giant Israel protection racket. What do you mean we owe them? So bottom line, look, I got 1,000 things to say about that terrorist loving Randy Fine, et cetera. But either we have the $500 million or Israel has the $500 million. That's the bottom line. And 422 congressmen said we should not have it. Another government should have it. Israel should have it. They shouldn't buy it from us. We should gift it to them. The American people need to have their paychecks docked. You work hard, work another hour. Israel needs more money. Work 2 more hours, work 2 more days. Israel needs more money. You shouldn't have the money. Israel should have the money. Those are traitors, I'm sorry. But come on, man. Come on, this is disgusting. And it's not like, oh wait, how about Ukraine and they're defending themselves against Russia. In the case of Israel, they're the ones attacking. They attacked Iran. They attacked Syria just 2 days ago. They're constantly attacking, taking land. They're in the middle of a genocide with our money. And we're still talking about defending themselves. This is just giant, but the good guys who voted with Israel in this case, I'm telling you, man, I get the political calculation because if they dared to vote against Israel on this, mainstream media would have made it their life's mission to destroy their careers. And anyone who says otherwise is a giant liar, and I'll debate him. If you're a mainstream media reporter at New York Times, Washington Post, CNN, wherever you are, come on the Young Turks and justify your horse crap coverage of this. Tell me why Israel's such a special ally that they must take our money. We must give it to them. No, the whole thing's a giant lie, and I'm so sick of it. Jackson.
Well, let's think it. The one time that Marjorie Taylor Greene makes some sense, she gets totally shut down, and she's probably never going to make sense again. So we wasted a beautiful opportunity. But the idea that Israel desperately needs this money is just ridiculous. First and foremost, what about the US aid that we cut off for people who need access to medicine for HIV and things along those lines? How the levels of that are going to spike? We just cut off almost $1 trillion in Medicaid from our own American citizens who desperately need that, most of them being in Republican red state rural areas who voted for Donald Trump. The SNAP that we just cut off, all these programs that we disabled in the regulatory and administrative state that American citizens count on. But Israel, who has universal health care, universal tax dollars paying for their citizens to go to college, they have it better than we do off of our dime. And, you got to think as well, it's not just the fact that the United States government has basically aided and abetted and propped up Israel ever since their founding, but these people are good friends with Benjamin Netanyahu himself, who is waging this campaign largely to stay out of prison. So everybody who voted against this is actively helping to keep Netanyahu out of prison where he belongs. So all of this is just friends scratching each other's backs at the end of the day. And you pointed out all the AIPAC money and things like that. You're only going to do so far. You're only going to go so far. You're only going to cross so many lines before you're worried about your boss firing you. And that's just how corrupted our system is. But the idea that these people desperately need this money, and I listed off, the programs that we cut off here at for American citizens, but what about all these nations who are like struggling for food, struggling for clean water, struggling for medical supplies, and we're not helping them? How cut off from the public interest are our publicly elected officials, because the everyday average person is not talking about this, other than maybe their support for Palestinian lives. People are more so concerned about affording their mortgages and their rents and things like that. So it's just really a shame to see all these people helping Netanyahu stay out of prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Cenk, I know we have to go to break, but I just wanted to add on to something that you said, that if someone like AOC or Jasmine Crockett or Ro Khanna ever want to run for anything ever again, not only will the mainstream media continually bring up their voting record as it pertains to this vote or to Israel in general, not only will the Republicans, but other Democrats are going to do that too and use that as a dig against them. We're already seeing that happen with Mamdani, for example, who doesn't even have a voting record, but he's already getting torched by other Democrats in New York for not being explicitly pro-Israel. So I just want to mention that before we get a break.
Yeah, my real quick point here is two things. Randy Fine talked about, there's Americans that live there. One of our members wrote in saying the Americans live in almost all countries. It's not a reason, but it goes further than that. Since 2022, Israel has murdered 8 American citizens, and we've done nothing about it. There's no accountability. Our great, wonderful special ally keeps killing our citizens. So the last one was a 20-year-old from Florida. The Israeli settlers beat him to death for 3 hours. The one before that was a 14-year-old American. Another one was an American journalist shot by a sniper in the neck. She had a press vest on, so they had to shoot her in the neck to kill her. Any accountability? Nothing. If you say that Israel doesn't control our government, you're being ridiculous. You're being totally propagandist liar. It's the most obvious thing in the world. You're telling me the #1 donor to Congress has no effect on Congress? You'd have to be an utter fool or a giant liar to say that. So we owe Israel. Nobody ever explains why we owe them. Okay, just real quick, this is $500 million extra on top of the $3.8 billion we give them every year on top of the $20 to $30 billion we gave them to commit this genocide, on top of the $311 billion we've given them in their lifetime. When do we get the $300 billion back? When does Israel owe us anything? But if you dare ask the question, does Israel owe America after we gave them everything in the world, weapons, $300 billion, protection in the United Nations, everything? They'll say, how dare you say that Israel owes America anything? No, you only owe Israel. Now, all of our dogs go and vote for Israel and not America. Make sure that money does not go to American citizens. It only goes to Israel. And they all go, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. And ABC, CNN, mainstream media, New York Times, don't criticize me. I bow to Israel. I bow to Israel. That's the reality. That's the absolute stone cold reality in America. We're occupied here. Palestinians, you're not alone. Americans have no control over their own government. You just saw it there, 422 to 6. And the 422 said, you American citizens that pay taxes, you owe Israel. Oh, did you all just get bribed by them? Yeah, but it's legalized bribery. It's legalized bribery. If you talk about it, you're the hateful one. So go and fund their genocide, because that would be the non-hateful thing to do. This is disgusting. We don't even control our own country. And if you say, oh, that's a trope. No. Shut up, you liars. The drug companies also own this country. The oil companies also own this country. Military companies, Big Sugar owns this country. All of the donor class owns all of those corrupt congressmen. They never work for us. They work for the donor class. Israel happens to be one of the donors, but you don't get to use Jewish history and Jews across the world as human shields and go, oh, I give you hundreds of millions of dollars, crook politicians. You give me back hundreds of billions of dollars. But if anyone points out the bribery, anti-Semitic trope, hide behind the Jewish civilians. Nah, you don't get to hide anymore. You're a government. And this particular government of Israel, not all governments of Israel, but this government of Israel is deeply evil, committing one of the most terrible genocides of our lifetimes. And all of our Congress tells us, you owe them more money. Go work harder so that Israel can commit more genocides. They've killed 20,000 children with our money. And if you dare say, as Marjorie Taylor Greene or Rashida Tlaib Summerlee, Thomas Massey, etc., on both sides, if you dare say that we don't owe them and we don't have to keep paying for their genocide, they say, you're the racist, anti-Semite bigot, and you're an outsider, and you should never be allowed to have any real position of power in this country. And then you tell me that that government is not occupied? No, the only people saying that are giant liars or people who are good people who believe the mythology and really got themselves to believe that we have to serve Israel. We must serve Israel and give them everything they want. It's nonsense, it's lies. We'll be back. All right, I'm gonna read some of these blind. Let's go to YouTube members. Amy Megason says, I think they all violated their oath of office. Impeachment needs to happen immediately. Who's gonna impeach them? The 6 of them are gonna impeach the 422? No, I mean, you gotta give credit to AIPAC. And again, any country would do it. It's a logical thing to do, okay? The other countries are just not good at this, right? But they're beginning to figure it out. And you see the now money flowing from Qatar and United Arab Emirates, et cetera, into Washington, into Donald Trump, et cetera. But no, they've got the government 100% locked up. You're not allowed to disagree with Israel. They might impeach the 6 that were. Randy Fine is in favor of murdering civilians in Gaza. He just says it. He said that they should nuke Gaza. No censure, nothing at all. Oh, you want to murder innocent Muslims? Oh, that's perfectly all right, because it's not like we're America and we believe in freedom and justice. No, we're America and AIPAC bought Congress. I just can't stand it, man. It's almost like they set up these mythology of anti-Semitic tropes to like shield them, so that if they do anything wrong at all, they go, oh, that's one of the tropes. You're not allowed to say it, you're not allowed to say it, you're not allowed to say it. But you are doing it, it doesn't matter. Even if I am doing it, you're not allowed to say it. No, I refuse. I refuse to go along with the madness and the gaslighting, the nuclear gaslighting in this country. Jorge Gutierrez says, I want my taxes refunded because I didn't agree to pay them so they could be sent to Israel. Afro-Vegan says, are we supposed to give money to every country that has Americans living there? Mexico has over 700,000 Americans living there. So should we be giving them billions, right? I mean, look, under that logic, no, we owe Mexico. Imagine if Mexico came and said, that's it, you owe us. Give me $300 billion. The whole country would lose their mind, right? Every MAGA guy in the world would be like, what the hell do you mean we owe you $300 billion? Israel says it and they're like, bow, and everybody bows. If that's a fact, you can catch feelings over it, but it is indisputably a fact that we just saw it with our own eyes. Kevin Shea says, it would be interesting to see all the voters who receive AIPAC money. No, guys, AIPAC funds almost all of Congress. So there's just, I'd only have to give you the exceptions. That's 6 and a couple of others. They're the #1 donor in this cycle. It's a joke. The whole thing's a joke. Why do we give $17 billion in oil subsidies? Because the oil companies own Congress. The Democrats never took away that money. Why didn't you take away the subsidies from the most profitable companies in the world? Because they're bought bitches. They're all whores for any donor that comes by. Israel's not the #1 problem. It's the fact that we allow bribery in this country. That's the #1 problem. All those corporations bribe our politicians, and our politicians are the least moral people in the country. So they're like, oh, bribes, that's what got me here. That's what I love. They screw over the American voters on every single issue on behalf of their donors. Those are the most immoral people in the country in that House of Representatives. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Yaz, and Jackson with you guys. Fat Saturday too. Thank you for gifting 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. You're awesome. Yaz, what's next?
All right, let's get into this one. It's a little bit of a lighter story.
Joe Rogan texted me.
Mother Joe. I loved it. By the way, I'm a Joe Rogan fan. He ain't a fan of mine, but I'm a Joe Rogan fan. No bull.
Right on.
A lot of edgy bleeps in that clip there. So an article from the Washington Post is calling out something that we've all probably started to notice on our own, that the Democrats are trying out a whole new tone, less scripted, more cursing, and Trumpier insults. It says the party leaders are swearing more, recording more direct-to-camera videos, and trying to project an authenticity many voters have come to associate with Trump. Cenk, this isn't the first time we've heard of deliberate efforts for Democrats to be more authentic, which in and of themselves feels very inauthentic. But before we dive into this story, I know you're having a bit of an I told you so moment with all of this.
Yeah, and so guys, we've been telling them to fight back harder and be edgier for what, 10, 15, 20 years? The whole time we've been on here. And what did they say to us? Whenever we fought back aggressively, they said, no, be civil. Civility is the most important thing in the world. You have to be super polite. I remember when Ossoff lost the first time around in the House, they had like these insane like placards behind him, like lose with grace or whatever the hell it said. Okay, it was like, come on, you weaklings, right? Now they're like, oh, we have now asked our Democratic consultants and spent millions of dollars on it. And it turns out that we need to curse more. That's not even the point, you dumbasses. Yeah, when I call you a dumbass because you're a dumbass, that's authentic because that's how I talk. Authenticity is part of the point, not, Gavin Newsom going, oh, I am going to effing tell you that. How did I do, consultant? Did I do well? I was trying to get on Joe Rogan's show. And so I told him that I like Rogan and I said F while I did it. Did I, okay, good. Here's $1 million. He taught me how to be authentic. No, and fighting back is on the substance. The substance is so much more important. This is all semantics to bury the fact that they never deliver for you. So we'll give you more of what these consultant class is telling them.
Yeah, well, this authenticity question has long plagued the Democrats, specifically as they're seen in contrast to Trumpy Republicans. So back in the early 2000s, people loved George W. Bush because he seemed like the kind of guy that you could get a beer with, okay? If you weren't around during that era, that is literally what they said about him. People did not, in contrast, like Hillary Clinton because, adorned in pantsuit after pantsuit, she had, quote unquote, an authenticity issue that she could never quite manage to get around. Case in point, here is a clip from Face the Nation from 2015. When Hillary attempted to prove to voters that she's like for real, a real person. Take a look.
Give us 3 words that is the real Hillary Clinton. Just 3.
Just 3, I can't possibly do that. I mean, look, I am a real person with all the pluses and minuses that go along with being that. And I've been in the public eye for so long that I think, it's like the feature that you see in some magazines sometimes. Real people actually go shopping,
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to really interrupt you. Thank you, Secretary Clinton.
John. Yeah, that sounds like something a not real person would say. So as much as Michelle Obama tried to teach us that we should never lower ourselves to someone's level, the Democrats have been considered out of touch by the voting populace. Too many big words, too much jargon, not enough catchphrases that can be easily slapped on, like a tacky bumper sticker or a sticker or something like that. So for all of that, the Democrats' careful diction often translates to weak and inauthentic. After all, they're politicians, whereas Donald Trump, in their minds, is not. He's just a regular guy. So this is reporting from the Washington Post that says every day the Trump administration, Republicans in Congress, they're doing something cruel and corrupt and absurd, and they deserve mockery, said Tim Hogan, who leads the DNC's war room. The strategy is not to have someone who needs to read a 40-page deck and calibrate before posting, but just go out and recruit people who know how to dunk. Democrats' unwillingness to appear on podcasts, for example, is seen as their fear of being unscripted and existing outside of politically safe environments. Meanwhile, Trump is all over the podcast scene. So is Bernie Sanders, by the way. But here's more from the Post. It says the DNC's meaner, more freewheeling social media presence is part of a broader shift underway among Democrats who want to loosen up, shake their by-the-book image, and strike a harder tone toward Trump and other Republicans. Party leaders are swearing more, using edgier insults, recording more direct-to-camera videos, embracing hours-long podcast appearances, and trying to project a raw authenticity that, to Democrats' frustration, many voters have come to associate with Trump. And to that end, the Dems have ramped up their F-bombs. They're just being meaner and snarkier in general. And here's a graph, and it shows that since Election Day of last year, the Democrats have publicly used increasingly more profanity, while Republicans have used less. Jackson, I'll start with you this time. What do you think is going to be the response that the Democrats get from all of this? Is it, we know that this is an actual strategy that they're now trying to implement, which feels very inauthentic. It feels like a very inauthentic way to go about creating authenticity, which is exactly what we saw Hillary try to do, much to her own detriment, I feel like. I think that there are a lot of younger Democrats who are out there who are a little bit more adept at navigating like social media and podcasts, that whole scene, everything like that. They get out there, they talk to people within the community. Those people do genuinely come off as more authentic to the greater audience. But then you have, like the old heads, like Nancy Pelosi, just a lot of older people in government right now, and like they're never gonna be that guy. What do you think?
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of like style and authenticity, a lot of that is a generational issue because, a lot of these people who become elected officials started off as lawyers. They went through prestigious schools. They didn't necessarily showcase that part of themselves. So everybody can see if and when it's fake. You really can't fake authenticity to any type of effective degree. But the real issue with the Democratic establishment is that they haven't delivered on policy issues for decades. So whenever there was an opportunity to raise the minimum wage, that could have been a massive win. Didn't do it. There was opportunities to at least push for like a public option, a next step beyond the Affordable Care Act. Instead of doing that, like in any type of real effort, it's just, no, we got to protect Obama's legacy. And especially for the younger voters, people who are like 18, 20, 23 now, they were children when Obama was president. So that type of stuff doesn't really mean that much to them. But, at the end of the day, yeah, sure, that can work. But again, like Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, we'll handle that, as we navigate through the digital, these digital platforms, connecting with people on social media, or Zoran, his very effective campaign, just really being in the streets and really connecting to what people need. That's what the Democratic establishment really needs to be focused on. Now, obviously, corruption is the biggest thing in the way of that. That's where we come in. And by we, I mean anybody who gives a damn about not just this country, but their communities. One thing I always do my best to encourage people to do is to start smaller, focus on your own community. Even myself, I've been very focused on St. Louis, Missouri, where I'm from, because you can't make sweeping change everywhere. And I think that we can burn ourselves out when we think that we have to change everything all at once. But in reality, you have cities across the country who have implemented things like universal basic income. Even here in St. Louis or Missouri, Medicaid was expanded through a ballot measure. So focusing on those types of initiatives really can go a long way and help to erase a lot of the apathy that the public feels. But I mean, cursing more isn't going to make people believe that their bills will be cheaper. So if the Democrats want to have any type of real relevancy going forward, they're going to have to do more than just throw us a bone.
Yeah. So guys, we got a poll here, but it goes to the heart of the issue. It's in the live show. The show's live, of course, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So start watching at 6 o'clock every day. So what's the Democrats' biggest problem? A, tone, B, policy. See, now they're going to changing their tone because they don't want to change their policy, right? So if they actually wanted to get voters, instead of saying, the F word, the S word every once in a while, who cares? You say it, I don't mind. And I'm not gonna give you a cookie for it. I'm gonna give you a cookie if you pass $15 minimum wage, if you pass paid family leave, but you don't wanna do that because you're crooks and you work for your donors. So instead, your stupid ass consultants told you to curse a couple of times and to seem more authentic by being even more fake. So I'm gonna read you guys this part of the LA Times that I read to you before because it's perfectly appropriate here. So because it's not just the politicians, guys, it's the media. Mainstream media says civility is the most important thing. These Democrats, for the last 20 years as we've been doing the Young Turks, they said, the Democrats better not fight back. They better not do anything, okay? They have to be civil. Why? Civility protects the status quo. It protects the powerful. The powerful are already at the top. So if you're civil, nothing will change. If you're uncivil, things might change. And that is why mainstream media has lied to you your whole life to protect that status quo. So when I ran for Congress, something super interesting happened. LA Times, did an endorsement in the race. They of course endorsed the corporate Democrat, which they do 200% of the time, right? But when it came to me in that race, here's what they wrote. Uyghur is seeking the seat to further the progressive agenda is promoted on his show. Okay, sounds good. But while we agree with him about the corrupting influence of money in politics and some other subjects, well, that sounds amazing. They agree with me on the most important issue, many other subjects. I'm running on a progressive agenda, which it turned out, hey, we could have used it, right? We could have won if we went in that economic direction and delivered for the American people. They end by saying, we find his pugnacious style off-putting and not conducive to a more civil Congress. So that's the mainstream media saying, you better not fight back. If you fight back against the status quo, we're gonna say that you're off-putting and uncivil and pugnacious. So now that Trump proved that style was correct, we were right all along. We were right all along. They should have been pugnacious from day one. They should have fought 1,000 times harder from day one. But now that the jury's come in on that, they're like, okay, great. Now we'll do that as theatrics and optics. But we're never ever gonna actually give you anything. And guys, there's only one issue in the country, money in politics. As long as there's money in politics, both the Republican politicians and the Democratic politicians are gonna get bought off. Then they're gonna use the money to buy dumb-ass consultants to do dumb-ass strategies. And that's where we are right now in the year 2025. All right,
Yeah.
we got to take
well,
a
I was
break.
going to say,
Sorry.
I like that they called you pugnacious, though. I feel like that's a compliment. That's all I want to add.
Yeah, it's a compliment today, but when I was running in 2020, they were like, oh, pugnacious is terrible. How dare you? How dare you? Okay, yeah, I dare. I was gonna say something I can't say on air. Oh, well, the consultants would have loved it today. Anyway, we'll be right back. I'm gonna read a bunch of super chats for the YouTube members and the Young Turks members on TYT.com. I'm gonna read more of your comments because you guys wrote in a lot of great stuff during the bonus episode. So good time to hit the join button below or TYT.com/join. In Liberty and Guns We Trust said, Cenk, nice work the other day on Piers with that witch and then neckbeard fooly schmooly. The Israeli government is sick, but the settlers are uniquely type of sick, the way they steal and think they deserve it. And they do, but that's all religious fundamentalists of every religion, honestly, are all lunatics. And they believe like, oh yeah, God told me that to kill you and take your land. God told me to kill you and do this. Whenever God's talking to these guys, God's always telling them to harm other people. What kind of sick God do they believe in? Deb Long says, looks like the check's cleared in regards to the vote to give Israel more money. Yep, those were legalized bribes. Almost all of Congress takes it. That is why they're owned by Israel. And if you think that's an anti-Semitic trope, you can go and suck it. You like that, Democratic consultants? Okay. TYT Rockin says, has anything changed or progressed since yesterday? No. Where's the future then if nothing changes? It's all the past once you see and hear it, when it's all the same BS as yesterday. Do nothing government. Yes, that is what the point of the government is, to do nothing to make sure that the powerful stay powerful, the rich stay rich, and they get even richer and get more money from us. The Breaker Wall says, Yaz, you are legally obligated to change your podcast name to Yaz Queen. Yes! I've tried to tell her that, but she won't listen. Cassandra Gothnier writes in, Colbert engages in a lot of political comedy. TYT doesn't have a comedy show. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Yeah, listen, here's the thing, sister, we ain't got that kind of money. We ain't got close to that kind of money. But go ahead and hit the join button. We'll get there one step at a time. One day. Pod 4 Studio says, Dems are leaning in on this, which is good, but I'm concerned they use it, meaning the Trump and Epstein issues, but I'm concerned they use it as a new excuse to not pass any policy. We can't let it be the new will breaking up the banks to solve racism. How do we do both? Guys, it's not that hard. So it's a good question, but how do you do it? You go out there and you do every podcast like Ro Khanna's doing and make your case on all of it. That's not that hard. The reason why they don't do it is because Democrats are like, oh, Mr. Consultant, which mainstream media should I go on for 5 minutes? And which message should I give them for me to get reelected and have fame and status and clout? Well, then you're not gonna be able to do both things because you're not trying. Bruce City Mike says, this is YouTube members now. I've gotten quite a bit more from Democratic administrations and bills, whereas Republican administrations have only taken from the poorest and most in need of Americans. I don't really care how they talk. In our crappy two-choice system, they're still the better choice for the average person. Brother, I agree. That's why I vote Democrat. That's why Rebellion PAC is within the Democratic Party, right? But you got to stop being satisfied, and I know you're not, but the 5 to 10% they give us as a release valve on all the pressure is not good enough. Stop taking the corporate PAC money, serve us. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Yaz, and Jackson. Yaz, what's next?
All right, let's roll the story on this crypto story.
Nearly half of all the corporate money flowing into the election this year is coming from the crypto industry, according to a new report from the nonprofit watchdog group Public Citizen. Sector heavyweights like Coinbase and Ripple, as well as the VC firm Andreessen Horowitz, which has a sizable portfolio of crypto companies, are giving tens of millions of dollars apiece to try to elect candidates who are friendly to the industry.
That report was from last August. So about a year ago, the crypto industry is getting a return on its investment thanks to both Republican and Democratic lawmakers. So one crypto-friendly bill passed both the House and the Senate, and President Donald Trump signed it into law today. 2 more crypto-friendly bills have passed in the House, but not the Senate yet. It's only a matter of time. Republican leadership in Congress declared that this week was crypto week even. They wanted to get 3 bills passed. We have the Clarity Act, the Genius Act, and the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act. So I will explain all of those to you very quickly. So the Clarity Act would largely hand the crypto industry its preferred regulator, giving the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, or the CFTC, jurisdiction over digital assets on blockchains that are deemed to be centralized versus the Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC. The industry seeks to avoid the SEC's application of restrictive security laws in favor of the smaller CFTC's looser oversight of commodities. The Genius Act classifies stablecoins as non-securities and exempts them from SEC oversight, among other things. The Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act would prohibit Federal Reserve banks from issuing a central bank digital currency, effectively preventing the US government from offering a digital version of the dollar to compete with crypto. The Genius Act was signed into law after passing the House and the Senate, and here's what Trump had to say about the bill.
Yeah, we worked hard. It's a very important act, the Genius Act. They named it after me, and I want to thank you. I want to thank you. This is a hell of an act.
That was actually kind of funny. All right, well, Politico reporter Jasper Goodman wrote this. House lawmakers voted 308 to 122 to adopt the Genius Act, with more than 100 Democrats, including Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, joining most Republicans to approve a measure that is poised to help legitimize digital assets as mainstream financial products. The Clarity Act passed the House and will face a vote in the Senate. So on that, Goodman wrote, 78 Democrats voted with Republicans to advance the legislation known as the Clarity Act, a blowout showing of bipartisan support that beat expectations. Jeffries voted against the market structure proposal, but it earned backing from several other prominent Democrats, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Democratic Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar. So just a few paragraphs later, Goodman explains that a growing bloc of the Democratic Party has joined Republicans in lining up behind the digital asset industry's Washington agenda. Companies in the crypto sector have poured hundreds of millions of dollars into influence efforts, and a mountain of super PAC money is threatening to target lawmakers who stand in the way of the industry's goals. The Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act passed the House 216 to 192. Only 3 Democrats, Jared Golden, Mary Sattler Petolta, and Marie Perez voted yes on that bill. And so now that one goes to the Senate. Jackson, let's start with you on this one. We know that there is so much corporate PAC money already in the government. We know, as Cenk just said, actually, there's only, there's money in politics, right? And we also know that the Democrats, they actually stated that going forward, they're going to be looking for those bigger donors, which devalues the actual voter even further than we already are. So what do you make of all of this? I mean, it's such a convoluted move for them to make now.
Well, I mean, to me, I don't really see what the big difference is between people who have big dollars to put into PACs or super PACs or dark money funds or whatever else it is. Because at the end of the day, like crypto, Bitcoin is the most stable out of all of them. People put things into like Ethereum, but pretty much everything else is just crashes over and over and over and over again, or it's just a straight scam. And Bitcoin right now is over 100,000. So obviously everyday people are not going to be able to purchase that. But again, like our federal government all the way down to the state and local level is so thoroughly corrupted. I mean, I don't really see how this makes it worse. If you have enough money to put into cryptocurrency, then that's a stock that you can hold. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, at least, crypto is never going to overtake government-backed currency because everyday people can't afford it, and also it's too complicated. You have to make all these exchanges, and it's not real money. But from my perspective, what difference does it really make? I mean, you could shut this down or not, but we already have all these other acts or these other avenues rather to where people can corrupt the system as much as they'd like. I mean, Elon Musk himself, just as an individual, put $300 million of his own money into this. Linda McMahon is the current head of the Department of Education because she donated $20 million to Donald Trump's campaign. So like, it's already completely corrupted. So, I don't really know how much of a big difference this really makes.
Yeah, so look, there's a shocking part of the story, but it's not that the Democrats voted with the Republicans. That part's easy to explain. The top two donors in Democratic primaries recently have been the Israeli lobby and crypto. So that did two things. One, when they donate to a crook establishment Democrat, that Democrat will work for them for the rest of their lives because they have no morality at all. They're just basically all criminals. But by the way, that's the entire Republican, almost the entire Republican Party, and a big chunk of the Democratic Party, and those are the crooks who take the money from crypto. But there's a second layer to it too. They eliminate all the honest progressives who were running in those primaries. So crypto guys spent a lot of money against progressives to make sure that there was nobody honest in government, so they could rob whatever they wanted from us, and that's what happened in this bill. So what did? How are we going to get robbed? Oh my God, you'd have to get into all these details. You think these crooks even read the bills? No, the crypto lobby writes the bill, then they hand it to their servants, and their servants in the Republican and Democratic Party pass it. They're deregulating cryptos, in my way of thinking about it, is a disaster, right? And so it's written by their lobby. It means that it is 100% written to advantage them over us. So we're screwed. I mean, but Jackson's right. I mean, these guys buy them, AIPAC buys them, oil buys them, drug companies buy them. We don't have a government. We have a bunch of crooks. But the only potential crooks that are larger are mainstream media, who are all pretending that this isn't a movie, that this isn't the Truman Show. Oh, they are debating. Get the F out of here. What are they debating? Did the crypto industry win this debate? It doesn't matter what you think of crypto. That isn't the point, guys. This isn't me telling you crypto is good or bad. This is me telling you that bribery's bad, okay? There was no debate. All there was an auction. So what's the shocking part of the story? At the end, Politico mentioned money in politics. I was like, oh, I almost never see that in a mainstream publication when they're talking about legislation. But at the end of the article, crypto was like, and it should be, Politico was like, should be noted that crypto spent a lot of money in elections to get this result. And I was like, wow, at the very end of a mainstream media article, we got one mention of corruption. We're on the board. We're on the board. I mean, Young Turks is the oldest show in internet history. We're the first YouTube partner. We've been around for decades here. That might be the first time I've ever seen mainstream media mention the fact that, oh right, by the way, they all get money from the people that they're voting on. You think that might make a difference? I think it makes all the difference in the world. So there you go. Our government is run by a bunch of crooks who took bribes from crypto. It was made legal by our crook Supreme Court. We live in a country that has been thoroughly corrupted and is now completely owned by the donors. Sorry, but that's the reality. Okay, we are massively over time. Guys, in the bonus episode for the members, we're gonna have a story of Charlie Kirk on the social issues. Now that they're in charge and they're giving away the farm to donors, Republicans have to switch tact and go back to the culture wars. So Charlie Kirk's gonna go back to the culture wars and tell you how women are not equal to men. All right, hit the join button below, we'll cover it there.